Hey there and welcome to our kitchen. I'm Jenny, one of the festival's mealtime mentors, and today we are cooking up some buffalo tofu bites. So tofu is one of my favorite proteins to work with because it's really simple, it's affordable, and essentially flavorless, so it just takes up whatever sauce you are cooking in. And I happen to just love buffalo. So let's get started. We have our extra firm tofu here. So I wrapped the tofu in some Viva paper towel and then place a heavy skillet on top to press out a lot of that extra moisture. I changed the paper towel a couple of times during a 15-minute time span just to make sure that it was always soaking into a dry towel. And it is pretty dry now to the touch, and it's compressed a little bit too. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and tear the tofu into bite-sized pieces, so about 1 inch in size. I like tearing the tofu because it has more of like an organic shape and it looks pretty cool. If you don't want to tear it, you can certainly just cut your tofu into 1 inch chunks instead. But this is a really fun step that kids can help do because you can't really mess up tearing tofu. If you tear it into a piece that's a little too small, it's okay. It'll just get a little extra crispy in the oven and it will still taste great. So now that the tofu is torn into those 1 inch chunks, we're going to toss it with a little bit of cornstarch. I have a tablespoon of cornstarch here. I'm just going to sprinkle it over. And this cornstarch is going to help the tofu crisp up in the oven. So I'll give this a quick toss. Make sure everything is evenly coated. And then I'm going to go ahead and place it onto our baking sheet. I just have a baking sheet that has been lined with some parchment paper so that the tofu doesn't stick. Go ahead and spread the tofu out. And I'm going to make sure that I'm leaving enough room between all the pieces so that they crisp up instead of steam. If they're too close together, they will steam instead of getting nice and hard and crispy, which is what we want in a buffalo tofu bite. So today we are going to be baking the tofu. When you think of like buffalo chicken, you typically think of frying the chicken. But today we're switching it up and doing something a little bit more nutritious, and we are going to be baking our tofu. So it's less mess, it's really, really simple, and there's a lot less oil involved too. If you have an air fryer, you could certainly use that as well, but we're just going to use the oven. So I'm going to go ahead and pop it in at 400 and let it bake for about 20 minutes. Give it a flip, and then it will bake for about 10 to 15 more minutes or until it's nice and crispy. All right, so while that is baking, I'm going to go ahead and get started on our sauce. So like I said, we're doing a buffalo tofu bite, so that means buffalo sauce, which is one of my favorite sauces because it involves hot sauce. We're using 6 tablespoons of hot sauce with 3 tablespoons of butter. So it is pretty spicy. If you aren't a huge fan of spice, you can switch up the ratios of the hot sauce and butter. So you could use like 6 tablespoons of butter and 3 tablespoons of hot sauce instead of the other way around, or just adjust it to your taste preference. But we found that this is a pretty good ratio for just the right amount of heat. All right, so to this, I'm going to add just a little dash of Worcestershire sauce. And then I will finish mixing this up. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and grab the tofu from the oven. It should be nice and crispy. So again, we flipped this halfway through so that everything would be evenly crisped. So the tofu has dried out a bit more, nice and crunchy. You can hear it on the parchment paper. So I'm going to go ahead and get this into our sauce, and then we'll give that a quick toss. And you know, if you aren't a fan of buffalo, you can use whatever your favorite like wing sauce is. So whether that's a pre-bottled kind or one that you make from scratch, this recipe is super versatile. because tofu is pretty mild in flavor and it takes on just whatever you are mixing it with. So this is a really great opportunity to kind of mix and match so that you can design your own tofu bite. And give this a quick toss. And this is something that unfortunately we can't make ahead of time because we want the tofu to be nice and crispy. So the longer it sits in the sauce, the softer it's going to get, and then you'll miss out on that great crunch you get when you take a bite of this. All right, so that's nice and coated. I'm gonna go ahead and get it out onto our plate. So this tofu is delicious on its own, or you can serve it with your favorite dipping sauce, whether that's like ranch or blue cheese. Serve it alongside some celery sticks or carrot sticks. And if you are vegan, you can use a vegan butter substitute instead of regular butter. But I absolutely love these tofu bites, and I think you will too. And for more recipes and resources from your Mealtime Mentors, visit festfoods.com.